Welcome to the Stick Figure Historian channel, guys. We're jumping back into the Texas part of our American series. We left off at Fort Anahuac last time, with Colonel Piedras leaving Lieutenant Cortina to his new command. This was after the whole Federalist debacle at Turtle Bayou that almost turned into a battle. But that was over now. It may have seemed to Cortina that the whole Federalist issue was going to stick to Mexico City. But, he would have been mistaken. It was 3 days after Colonel Piedras had slipped past the northern horizon, and the soldiers of Fort Anahuac were sitting around drinking. Drinking too much, it seems, for some of them started raising a ruckus. "Down with President Bustamante! Long live the Federalists! Victory to Santa Anna!" And so the spirit of revolution spread amongst them, until nearly all had either from their hearts or in their stupor declared for federalism. Cortina was rattled down to his bootstraps. Well, if he had bootstraps, that is. Hey, actually, he'd probably look really good in boots. Not white, that's a horrible color. It'd get dirty in 3 sec... What? Okay, enough already. Let's just stay on track here. So, Cortina was utterly unprepared for this. Disturbances he had expected from the Texans, perhaps, but never such a canker from within his own fort walls. He tried to get control over the men, tried to enforce discipline and bring them back to their senses, but all in vain. In desperation, Cortina even turned to Bradburn, begging him to take back his command and stop the mutiny. But Bradburn would not. They had kicked him out, and he wasn't going to swallow his pride and come back now and they complained that they couldn't do the job that they had stolen from him. Besides, he had his own problems to deal with. Unsurprisingly, given his disagreeable nature, a few attempts had been made to assassinate Bradburn, and he decided he was done playing that game. He left to find a boat to take him back to America, only to find that not a single ship captain would take him on board. They had all declared for the Federalists. Eventually, Bradburn found a guide that was willing, for a price, to take him to Louisiana on foot, and he was literally forced to run for his life. The Mexican officers within Fort Anahuac, who were still loyal to Bustamante, began to follow Bradburn's example, quitting their posts and scattering in various directions. Meanwhile, Colonel Piedras was still marching happily away to Nacogdoches. Of course, he knew nothing of what was happening back at the fort. He still thought that things were safe and sound as he had left them with Lieutenant Cortina. He was in for quite a surprise. For when he came to Nacogdoches, it was only to find it in a state of rebellion. It turns out that nearly the whole of Texas was up in arms for the Federalists now. The Texan militia utterly routed Piedras and his men in what is now called the Battle of Nacogdoches, even capturing the colonel himself. Yep, like I said, this uprising was no mere flash in the pan in Anahuac. All of Texas was catching the Federalist fervor. Although, I have to make a quick note here. This wasn't actually what Texas looked like at the time. In 1832, it was actually about this size. Anyway, Texas has gone Federalist crazy, and what's more, Stephen Austin himself was at their head as a faithful supporter of Santa Anna. By the end of 1832, every last Mexican troop had been driven out of Texas. And the Federalist triumph was equal in Mexico City. Bustamante was banished, and a new president, Valentin Gomez Farias, was sworn in, with Santa Anna's support and approval, of course. Farias assured the Texans that things would go differently now that he was president. He relaxed many of the restrictions of the law of April 6th, though, really, many of the Texans had been ignoring the law all along, and he gave them more representation in the government. Stephen Austin was delighted. The other settlers, not so much. Many of them had been hoping for something more than just a puny compromise. For starters, they didn't like that the province of Texas was still linked with the province of Coahuila. Coahuila? I don't know. Sorry, guys. The issue being that their votes were heavily influenced by the large Mexican population there. Secondarily, the Texans wanted to get all the tariffs abolished. They simply didn't like paying taxes on shipping. Are you seeing a theme here with money again? On the first count, Farias told them that, according to the law, Texas couldn't separate from Coahuila until it grew to a large enough population. As to the issue of tariffs, well, that was just asking too much. The Texans were citizens of Mexico. Therefore, they had a duty to support their government, did they not? His answers were met with grumbling. Stephen tried to reason with the Texans to look at the bright side. Federalist Mexico was at least something better than Republican Mexico had been in terms of their business interests, wasn't it? Things seemed at peace, but the underlying discontent was not easily cloaked. Little tax resistance movements flared up in various Texan towns. The ghosts of Bradburn's fears were resurrected in the mind of President Farias. Perhaps the Texans were planning to separate from Coahuila. Perhaps from Mexico itself. He began to wonder if Stephen wasn't the loyal subject he was making himself out to be. He was clearly a great and well-respected leader among the Texans. Was it not Stephen who had personally organized the Federalist uprisings there? Perhaps the impresario was now implanting ideas of secession in the minds of the settlers. Farias didn't waste much time with worrying or speculating about the matter of a single man. As Stephen was going about some business in the town of Saltillo one day, soldiers laid hands on him and led him away with them to Mexico City. Nobody told him it was under charges of encouraging revolt, for it wasn't the custom in Mexico then to tell a prisoner the charges brought against him. So, while Stephen spent the rest of 1834 sitting in prison, Santa Anna, actually, was having one of the busiest years of his life. Turns out, he wasn't satisfied with Farias either. In fact, he decided he really wouldn't be satisfied with anyone ruling Mexico but he himself. And so, poor Mexico was plunged into bloody turmoil once more. The end this time being that the ruthless war hero of Medina emerged as her triumphant dictator. From a vassal of Spain, Mexico had gone to an empire, a republic, a federalist republic, and now to a centralized republic. Centralized, we call it, because the power was central, focused in one place, in one man. And that man was Santa Anna. The first thing he did was to abolish the old Constitution of 1824. His word alone would serve as the law. Powerful guys getting into office and ditching the Constitution. Kind of like I've seen that somewhere before. What the? Get that off there! Golly. I've gotta have a talk with my production team. Well, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Next week, we'll finally be getting into the Texan Revolution, and a lot closer to the Alamo.